שעשה ניסים לאבותינו בימים ההם ובזמן הזה. All the Torah and all the chesed that we do in here, and in His merit, let us say amen. I'm here to invite, first of all, just a few words of introduction. I will invite Rabbi Hecht. Rabbi Hecht is the chief rabbi, the Shliach HaRashi, the head Shliach of the Shluchim here in Queens. Rabbi Hecht is here for 40 years. I don't need to introduce Rabbi Hecht. 45. He said, Rabbi Vaknin, why are you so cheap? Why are you 7 years? Okay, you know, we are Israelis. We like to change numbers. Okay, 45 years. 40 שנה עקוד בדור. ואומר עם טועה לבבם. והם ידעו דרכי, Rabbi Hecht. We enjoy his fruit. Rabbi Hecht is going to be the first one to give us some word of inspiration for tonight. I will mention, ladies and gentlemen, I will mention 2 words. The first one is, you know, we are Sephardim. We like all these segulot. So I will tell you in the word of Admor HaZaken that we all came here to celebrate Yotet Kislev. Rabbi Friedman will explain in the best way. This is his job to explain what is so special, so unique about tonight. But I will read you a few segulot. Listen to what Admor HaZaken, the first Chabad Rebbe, said. מי שישתדל בשמחתי, הוציאנו מן המצר אל המרחב, מן הגשם אל הרוח. Anyone that will try, anyone that will make the extra mile to come to be happy in my event, I will take him out from any narrow place and the gate of heaven is going to be open. And you know what? Such a statement fit this night. We start the night in a small room and 10 minutes later, Admor HaZaken took all of us, Mina Metzar El HaMerchav, to such a big rooms. There's no wondering why we move into such a big rooms. Anyone that will come to make such an event for my kavod, I will take him out. Listen to the next word, the next statement that Admor HaZaken said. הקדשתי את י"ט בכסלו, כמו יום הכיפורים. I designated this night, these days, like יום הכיפורים. What is so special about יום הכיפורים? Very simple. שכל מה שיהודי יבקש, תתקבל בקשתו. Anything you wish and you desire, God will respond in your wish. I designated this night to be like Yom Kippurim. It's anything better for all of us to ask for Mashiach Tzidkenu, for all of us to ask God to take us away from this exile, for all of us to ask the Almighty God to make sure that all the Jews around the world will be healthy, Be'ezrat Hashem, will be successful money-wise, that we're all going to move into Eretz Israel, that we're all going to have Shalom Bayit, Briut of our children, that we're all going to be merry Be'ezrat Hashem, that is not going to be any obstacle in none of us. This is the night to ask. I'm asking in a personal way that the Almighty God will bless our community. The BJCC Youth Minyan Third Floor, the place to be. To have every Shabbat 360 people, every Shiur 360 people, every night 360 people. And hopefully this year we're going to get to 36,000 Jews, Bukharian Jews, to get them one step closer to the Almighty God. I want to welcome Rabbi Hecht, Rabbi Chen, Rabbi Blach, Rabbi Zalman and Rabbi Valovik, all the shluchim here. And let's invite Rabbi Hecht to be the first one to give us a word of introduction.
Thank you. Very briefly, I'll try without a microphone because there's a bit of a... Good evening. What is this? Okay. Very, very briefly, because it's already 9:30, so we have to get the program moving. But just to get things moving. Let me start just by telling a little story that is told about the Baal HaTanya when he was a young man studying together with his friends and colleagues by the great teacher, the Magni Mezrich. There was a debate among the disciples whether the teachings of the Kabbalah, as they were taught by the Baal Shem Tov and his disciples, whether it was the right time, whether it was the proper environment, whether the world was ready for the teachings of Chassidut of the Baal Shem Tov to be revealed to the world. And there was a debate among the disciples, and one day one of the disciples came rushing in to the Beit Midrash, and he was holding a piece of paper. On it were written the words of Chassidut, the words of the Torah, and it had fallen, it had blown out of a window, and it had fallen into the mud and the dirt. And he came rushing into the Beit Midrash, and he ran over to Rabbi Shner Zalman, whose celebration we are celebrating tonight. He said, look, you see, this is what happens. Torat Baal Shem Tov, the Torah of Hashem, the teachings of the Kabbalah, laying in the mud outside in the street. That's because you and your friends, you're trying to disseminate. You believe in teaching this to the masses, to the people. It's better that it should remain secret, only among our inner circle of students. So B'Shnei Zalman said, you know, a very interesting point, but there's a story told about a great king who had an only son whom he loved very, very much. And once the son became very ill, and the father didn't know what to do. He called doctors from all over the country to try to heal the son. They couldn't heal him. And he sent out a message to foreign countries. Is there a doctor who understands this illness, this ailment my son is suffering from? Please come. Any payment that you ask for, the greatest treasures in the world will be yours if you can heal my son. And finally, one great doctor came from a distant land, and he said, I'm familiar with this sickness. Let me examine your son and see what I can recommend for you. And the king brought the doctor into the child's room. The child was very pale. He was barely breathing. He was he lost a lot of weight. He looked very terrible. It looked like a child was on his deathbed. And the king cried to the doctor, said, please do what you can to save this child. Doctor goes over and examines, and this examination, that he tests him here, tests him there, takes a little blood, takes a little bit, listens to his heart, listens to his lungs, listens to his thing, checks his feet, checks his hands. And the doctor says, I know exactly what this sickness is. And I know exactly what is needed to heal this child. In fact, it is something which is very unique. It's very, very rare in the whole world. It's a special, precious stone. And that precious stone, if you grind it up into a dust, and you add that dust with certain types of liquids, and you give it to this child, he'll be healed. Doctor, anything you say, of course we have it. My people will go find the stone. What is this stone? And he writes down on a piece of paper, he writes down the name of the stone. And he gives it to the king, and the king looks at it, and he turns pale. His whole face goes white. What's the matter? The doctor says. This is the stone on my crown, on the top of my crown. The best stone, the biggest stone on the top of the crown, which makes my crown of my kingdom the most gracious and most powerful in the whole world, is that stone which is in the top of my crown. You want? The doctor says, well, it's up to you. If you want your child to live, the only way but I have to warn you of something. That I'm not sure, because he's so sick, I'm not sure if he'll be able to take the medicine. It may not get into his mouth is sealed. We're going to have to push it into his mouth, and hopefully, if he swallows some of this medicine, hopefully he'll be able to survive. And the king looked at his child, he took his crown off his head, and he gave it to the king, and he said, here, do whatever you have to do. And the king took the stone, they ground the stone down, they mixed it with the liquids, with the elixir, and they started to administer, to give to the child. They finally got his mouth open, and half of the liquid spilled all over his body, and half spilled all over his face, and finally a few drops went into his mouth. And a few drops, he swallowed those few drops, and you know what happened? He became alive. Suddenly he opened his eyes, the color returned to his face. And the king stood together with the doctor, and he hugged him, he embraced him, and he said, you saved my child's life. Whatever it cost, whatever it was, even though my crown was destroyed, the greatest thing in my life has been answered, my greatest prayer has been answered, my child is alive. And B'Shnei Zalman said that this is the story of the teachings of the Kabbalah as it is brought out in the Chassidut of the Baal Shem Tov as taught by Rabbi Shlomo Zalman. The greatest teachings of God are the hidden teachings of the Kabbalah. This is the special precious stone which is in the crown of God's, in the diadem on the top of God's crown. And it's something which is very precious, and for many thousands of years it's been hidden and it's been secluded away from us. But now the time has come, because the Jewish people have gone through so much suffering in the Galut, so many terrible suffering, pogroms, terrible inquisitions, terrible events that happened to the Jewish people. We're familiar with the pogroms of Khmelnytsky, pogroms of 1648 and 49. Afterwards, there was the false Messiah things. It was the beginning of the 1700s, and Rabbi Zalman said, God has decided that the only way to save the Jewish people now is by revealing the teachings of the Chassidut as taught, as based on the teachings of the Kabbalah. And this is what the Baal Shem Tov wanted to bring into the world, to revive the Jewish people and to bring us back alive, so that very soon with these teachings we'll be able to go and march towards the coming of Mashiach. Eventually, Rabbi Shneur Zalman was the one who documented and put all the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov into the books that he wrote, and he wrote many, many Sfarim. Tonight we are celebrating the release 220 years ago in 1798. He was arrested by the Tsarist regime because of many false accusations that were made against him, including one of the false accusations was that because the Baal Shem Tov brought in the Nusach Sfarad, not the way our Sfarad Mizrach, but Nusach Sfarad, which has ended up in Europe, which is based on the Nusach HaArizal, which we of the Eidot HaMizrach, of course, we have our form of Sfarad, but his Sfarad, because he brought a new Nusach into the communities, what happened was that small shtiblach, small Batei Knesset was set up away from the big synagogues. And the Halshana was that, you know what? Where did the Jews pray? Where did the Jews pray for the health and the long life of the Tsar? Oh, the Tsar knows that. In the synagogues, after they read the Torah, they make a special prayer for the king. And this is but you know what? In the small synagogues that Rabbi Shneur Zalman started, they don't say that prayer. So they are actually in rebellion against the Tsar. This is one of many different halshanot, many different false accusations. Anyway, he was arrested, and finally on the 19th of Kislev, he was freed, and this has become the Chag HaGeulah, and it's called Rosh Hashanah L'Chasidut. We're so lucky that Rabbi Friedman has been able to set aside a few minutes. I don't want to take up too much of your minutes, but he's able to come with us. Rabbi Manas and I were Chaverim back for the days of the yeshiva. We studied together for our smicha. We studied together Chasidut. We were head counselors together in Camp Gan Yisrael. We have a lot of a history going back. The only thing is somehow he ended up, where is he? He ended up with a long beard, and I only got a small beard. I don't know why that worked out that way. We got married at the same time also, right? My wife remembers that. So our history and our friendship goes back since our youth. It is really a tremendous pleasure for me. I didn't think we would be zocher to have him. He's a person who has lectured literally all over the world. He is requested, and it's very hard to get Rabbi Friedman to be able to set aside a time to come. We're very, very lucky that he's here with us tonight, and I'm sure that we're going to be tremendously inspired by his words. He's one of the foremost and premier speakers who are able to go out into the world to bring the teachings of Rabbi Shneur Zalman, the Alter Rebbe, Admar HaZaken, as well as our own Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel, to the world in a way that we can all come to lift up our lives, take that elixir, that medicine, swallow some of that medicine, and in this way be revived and go to greet Mashiach. Amen. Rabbi Friedman, please. Chavod.
Don't leave. I didn't even start yet. Yeah.
I don't know, this one also.
It's ticking. What is this? Tape recorder?
Go like this?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Can you hear me in the back?
Yes.
Good. This is for the camera? Oh, the microphone for the camera. Okay. So, you know the story where the Satan came to God and said, "You're so proud of Avraham that he serves you so well and he's so devoted to you. If you asked him to sacrifice his son, he wouldn't do it." So God said, "Let's see." And he asked Avraham, he tested Avraham, would he sacrifice his son? And you know the story. The real miracle in the story is that what the Satan said was true. A human being cannot give up the son, his only son, the one that he loves. A human being cannot give up his son for God. It's not human. So there was a story where the Maggid, the Alter Rebbe's teacher, was not feeling well. He was sleeping. So 3 Chassidim came to sit, to take care through the night. They thought the Maggid was asleep, so they started a little conversation. One of them asked, "What is the greatness of Avraham?" He was willing to sacrifice his son. What's so great about that? If God came to me and asked me to do something, I would do it. What's the greatness? They were very simple people, but they were very real. The Maggid had so much pleasure from hearing their conversation. So they were quiet for a while, and then one of them said, the greatness of Avraham is not that he did it, but that he did it with a whole heart. Gladly. It was quiet again for a while, and then the third one said, it's not a good explanation. If God came to me and told me to do something, I would do it with my whole heart. And it's true. Since Avraham, how many of us sacrificed our children? Particularly under communism. You sent your son away to a yeshiva, you didn't know if you would ever see him again. You literally gave him up. You also put your own life in danger, because if they found out that you sent your son to a yeshiva, you would be punished. And yet, hundreds, thousands. So the real secret is, the greatness of Avraham is that he made it possible. And according to nature, it was not possible. In other words, when Avraham decided to make the Akedah, he changed the laws of nature. He changed the condition of a human being. He made it possible that a human being can rise above his most precious connections and devotion and to serve God on that level.
What is Maggid?
The Maggid? The Maggid was the teacher of the Alter Rebbe, who was the successor of the Baal Shem Tov. Just like Avraham changed the laws of nature, and now every Jew can give his child away to God. The same thing happened with the Alter Rebbe and Chassidut. It wasn't just another philosophy, it wasn't just an explanation of Torah, it changed our nature. It created a new reality that wasn't possible before. What is this new reality? The Rabbi mentioned, the Alter Rebbe said, I will take you out of your limited condition and free you, liberate you. What is that limited condition? Today we can appreciate this more than ever. The limited condition is that a human being has many needs. And when we don't have what we need, we are very unhappy, we are very uncomfortable, we suffer, we get sick in the head because we don't have what we need. Sometimes it's even worse. We get upset and we get depressed because we don't have what we want, even if we don't need it. There was a young boy who went from the United States to France to yeshiva. There was a yeshiva outside of Paris. It was very old-fashioned. You want to know how old-fashioned? The toilets were outside. There was no plumbing. Really old-fashioned. So the American boys who went there found it very difficult to adjust. This young boy went to yeshiva there, and he couldn't last past 3 months. He came home. But he came home a different person. Changed. Because the first day that he walked into the yeshiva with his suitcase, he went to the Rosh Yeshiva, and he said in Yiddish, he said, I have to call my mother to tell her that I arrived. And the Rosh Yeshiva said to him, just a minute. He said, I have to call my mother. The Rosh Yeshiva said, just a minute. What does I mean? And what does have to mean? I have to. Really? It changed him. Here is the point. We suffer when we don't have what we want. We certainly suffer when we don't have what we need. That's human nature. The Torah changes human nature. It lifts us out of that limited condition and sets us free. Chassidus teaches us in very logical, explainable ways that a human being is not a needy creature. You are created with needs. You have to eat, you have to drink, you have to sleep, you need money, you need a house, you need friends, you need support, you need. It just goes on and on and on. Psychology comes along and says, yeah, you don't even know what you need. If you come for therapy, we'll dig a little deeper, you'll find out you need things you never even thought of. And you are frustrated because you don't have those things. And then you'll feel better. You don't feel better. It just gets worse. Chassidus says, that's not what a human being can be. That's just our nature. Who says you're stuck in your nature? The Torah lifts us out of nature, makes us bigger, so that we can change the world, not the world should tell us how to be. Nature doesn't tell us how to behave, we change nature, like Avraham Avinu. What is the change? Really, if you think about it, if you go deeper than psychology, you will find deep down inside, you don't need anything. You have no needs. The Rebbe's famous quote, or favorite quote, Ani lo nivreisi ella l'shamish eskaini. Ani, I, lo nivreisi. As far as I'm concerned, don't create me. I don't need this. Ella, so why am I created? To serve him. So what do I need? I don't need anything. Why am I here? Because the Creator needs something. So I am here to serve him. That's what makes it possible to stay Jewish, even when there are so many good reasons not to be. This is what makes it possible to live your life like a Jew under circumstances like communism, where practically it is not possible. Under Stalin, it wasn't possible. But Jews remain Jews. So they had the yeshiva underground. So they had to move it every couple of months from one city to another. And some people were caught and were punished and died. But the yeshiva went on. How is that possible? It's not possible. But since when is that a problem? It's not possible for the Jewish people to exist. Okay, so it's not possible. So that's why we should stop existing? Just because it's not possible. We are bigger than nature, and we change nature. That's why the scientists, the historians can't figure out how come we're still here. It's not possible. And what is our answer? So it's not possible. So what? We're Jews. This is what makes it possible when the Rebbe started the project of sending shluchim. What does it mean to take your family, go to a city where nobody wants you, nobody invited you, nobody needs you? Go there with a one-way ticket and don't come back. Everybody said, in the 1950s, everybody said to the Rebbe, if you do that, they will not come back. They will stop being Jews, they will become assimilated, they will stop keeping Torah, they will stop keeping mitzvot. They're alone in a community where they are the only ones keeping Shabbat. It's not going to work. Nature will change them. But look what happened. All these years, young couples, without any formal training, without any special training, go out to a community where they are the only ones. And you come back 10 years later, there's a mikveh, there's a minyan, there's a school. When I came to Minnesota in 1970, in the entire state, there were 2 Sukkot on Sukkot. One was Rabbi Feller, the first shliach. The other one was in the conservative synagogue under the the canopy where you pull up in front of the door. So they put the sukkah under. You know, they don't want to get wet. Everybody else who was there, including the Orthodox synagogue, they put their sukkah in the back where you can't see it. Today, if you come to Minnesota, I don't know why you would, but if you did, you would find sukkot on front lawns everywhere. How is that possible? The answer is, it wasn't possible. The Rebbe changed our nature. The Rebbe created a reality that wasn't there before. That a young couple, without any special enticement, you're not promised anything special, not even a salary, to go out into a community. Why? Because life is not about me. Life is about making the world godly. If that's how you make the world godly, so you go. And you do it happy, like Avraham Avinu. You leave your family behind. You leave all the comforts behind. Some guy told me he's on shlichus for many years. He's okay, he's happy, he's good. Just one thing. He can't find a good bagel. The New York bagels. He misses the New... Now you can get New York bagels everywhere. But that was his only regret. This is not natural. And yet, it seems so natural. Anywhere you go in the world, you find a shliach, they all look alike, they all sound alike, They all have the same pictures on the wall. They're all happy. How is this possible? It's a new reality. 100 years ago, it was not possible. So Chassidut, the Alter Rebbe, started a campaign to change nature. The previous Rebbe started a campaign to destroy communism. That wasn't possible either. But so what? Since when is possible the dictator that tells us what to do and what not to do? So we're celebrating a Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah means a new beginning. Not just a new year, a new reality. What wasn't possible yesterday, today it's possible. What was unnatural 100 years ago, today it has become natural. That's how you prepare the world for Mashiach. Not just by being nice. Change the laws of nature. Because in order for Mashiach to come, in order for Olam Haba, everything has to change. If you're intimidated by nature, then you give up, you quit. Jews were never intimidated by nature. That's what Hanukkah is all about. That's what Purim is all about. That's what Pesach is all about. All of those events were not natural. But once they happened, they became part of nature. We changed reality. So, here is the liberation of the Alter Rebbe. We can liberate ourselves from our needs. We don't live our lives trying to satisfy our needs. That is so frustrating. It's so meaningless. You're born hungry, you spend your life eating, and then you die. This is not a good plan. You're born with needs, you work all your life to satisfy those needs, and then you die. What's the point? So we realize my needs are just nature, not the purpose of creation. So it can't be that my purpose is to make sure that I have what to eat. That doesn't make sense. My needs are not really mine. I need to eat. I need to stop eating. And I can't. So this is my need. If I created myself, would I have to eat? If I created myself, would my life depend on vegetables? Nope. Only in God's plan does a human being have to eat. So, is it my need or is it his need that we eat? It's his, not mine. So let me tell you a quick story. There was a young boy, 14 years old, in Minneapolis. He and his friend decided to commit suicide. They tried, but somebody found them, and this one of the boys ended up in the state hospital in the psych ward, the 6th floor of the hospital, for 48 hours. He was being evaluated. This is a very scary place, because most people there are adults, and they're being evaluated whether they should get the electric chair or go for therapy. So it's like a prison. It's got bars on the doors. Every nurse is carrying a taser. It's a dangerous place. So the mother is not allowed to visit. The only people who can visit are clergy. So she calls me. I never saw her. She never saw me. She needs a rabbi. Her rabbi didn't want to go. So she asked me if I would visit her son. So I've been there already a few times, and I know how scary it is. And a 14-year-old boy, he must be so frightened. So I agreed to go. I come up, I get out of the elevator, and the nurses are fighting with a guy, and they're putting him into handcuffs, and everybody else is standing around screaming like, Mishigoyim. So I go off to the boy's room. He's lying in bed. He's reading something as if he was in camp. He hears the screaming, doesn't care. I tried to make a conversation with him. He's not interested. He doesn't even look up from his book. I said, how are you? I said, your mother asked me to come see you. She's worried. What should I tell her? He doesn't want to talk to me. I try for 10 minutes. Not interested. Finally, he says, why don't you go home? The chaplain has already been here. I said, what did the chaplain say? He says, something stupid. I said, really? What did he say that was stupid? The chaplain said I shouldn't kill myself because God loves me. I said, that's stupid? He says, yeah. I said, I agree. I agree. I can't imagine God loves you. You're an obnoxious brat. So he looks up from his book and he says, yeah. I said, God created you. Obviously, you're important to him. You're a piece of the puzzle. There's something he needs from you that he can't get from anybody else. So he's never stuck with you. I don't think he likes you. So he says, well, what if I don't want to do what he created me for? I said, okay. That's called freedom of choice. You have the freedom of choice. You can say yes, you can say no. Anyway, on my way home, because I took his advice and I went home, on the way home I'm thinking, I just discovered something really important. Because the boy was right. He comes from a pretty normal family. Why did he try to kill himself? For no reason. Boredom. Because he's convinced that he's not necessary. So what's the difference? If he is, he's not. Lives, dies, what's the difference? So now, he's sitting in the hospital because he told the world, I am not necessary. I don't need this. The chaplain comes and says, but you shouldn't kill yourself because God loves you. And the boy says, that's stupid. If I'm not necessary, how is loving me going to make up for that? It's almost as if the chaplain said to him, you know, you're right. You're not necessary. But still, don't kill yourself because God loves you. If I'm not necessary, but you love me, then you're treating me like a puppy, like a pet. You don't need a pet, but they're so cute. You love it, you get a pet. A human being can't take that. If I'm not necessary, then your love is stupid. What does the Torah tell us? Bereshis bara elikim es hashamayim ve'es ha'aretz. God created the whole world for what? For Jews. Does that mean he loves us? Sometimes. Sometimes not. But he needs us. He created the world for us. So he depends on us to make the world a godly place so that he can feel comfortable in this world. So the Alter Rebbe, you have to quote the Alter Rebbe, it's his party. The Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, this is the essence of a human being. This is what all the world is all about, not I need. The whole world is because God wants a dwelling place in the lower world, and he depends on us to do it. So, what did I learn from that little visit to the boy? There's only one thing a human being needs. One thing. To know what I am needed for. That's all. Just tell me what you need from me and my life is wonderful. What I need, only for 100 years. After 100 years, I won't need it. So never mind what I need. What can I do for you? This is the new reality of human beings that the Torah makes possible. Which part of the Torah? Chassidut. So take a look at the difference. A person is taught, you are helpless. You have problems. You have issues. You need to make a living. You need to be healthy. And you can't without God. So you are dependent on him completely. So you better behave yourself. If you want favors from him, you better behave yourself. Do mitzvot, don't do sins. You're not going to get what you need. So what do? We ask him, we beg him, we plead with him, like on Yom Kippur, please write us in the book of life, I don't want to die. It sounds terrible. It makes human beings sound terrible. Chassidut says, wait a minute, you're not going to die. You're going to live. Yom Kippur is not because you're afraid of dying and you want to convince God to give you life. That is so greedy, it's so selfish, it's so petty. Yom Kippur means God is going to give you a year of life because he needs something from you. Are you going to disappoint him again like last year? That's Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur means God is going to give me life. I want to know how to live it. So write me into the book of life doesn't mean I don't want to die. There's a book of life that tells us what life is all about. What is life all about? Serving our Creator. So what is Yom Kippur? You're saying like Yom Kippurim? Yom Kippur means, I know you're going to give me another year of life. I really don't want to waste it like I did last year. How did I waste last year? Taking care of me. I don't want to do that again. That's embarrassing. This year, I want to live my life serving you, because that's what life is really all about. This is the teachings of Chassidut. This is what the Alter Rebbe created, not just taught. He made it possible. And in order to change nature and make something possible that wasn't possible, you have to risk your life. So why was he arrested? Why was he threatened with a death sentence? Because until you're willing to rise above nature, you can't change nature. The Alter Rebbe was trying to change nature. For this, you have to go all the way to the point of sacrificing your life. So he did, and he won, and that's why we can now be free. So try doing this. Next time you feel like you need something, ask yourself, I need. This is my idea. So if your child says, I didn't ask to be born, you have a smart child, not a depressed child. Yeah, true, you didn't ask to be born. Nobody asks to be born because nobody needs to be born. So if I don't need to be born and I didn't ask to be born, how all of a sudden do I have so many needs? I need this, I need that, I need more, I need less. It's not true. Rise above it. Every time you feel like you need something, ask yourself, how does that compare to what God needs? He created the world, not me. He created me, not me. He created my needs, not me. So if I eat, I should eat because He wants me to eat. If I drink, it's because He wants me to. I don't want to. Ani lo nivreisi. As far as I'm concerned, I didn't ask to be born. I don't need to be born. I don't need all these needs. So why am I here? L'shamash eskaini. I am here because in some miraculous way, I'm important to Him. So every time I can do something for Him, I have a reason to live. So you stop somebody in the streets and you say, would you like to put on tefillin? And he says, no thank you, I don't need it. Does he need it? He doesn't need it. The whole point is, you stop a guy in the street. He's running to get what he needs. Right? That's what most people are running for. He's running to lunch. He's running to start a business. He's running to make a purchase or to make a sale. He's running to get what he needs. And you stop him and you say, take a minute. Put on tefillin. Because you don't need. You don't need to put on tefillin. This is not part of your nature. This is above your nature. In 5 minutes, you can do something that you don't need only because God does need. That liberates you. It takes you above nature. And if we do this regularly, that will become the new nature. So what's going to happen when Mashiach comes? It will be natural. Every mitzvah will become the most natural thing. We won't have to be reminded. We won't have to be told. We will just live mitzvahs because that's real, that's true. Because He needs it, it's forever. Does it make sense? It has to make sense. Because it's our new nature. It's not a miracle, it's not heavenly. Now this is the new world. The world to which Mashiach can come. Because Mashiach coming is not to take care of your needs. Not everybody has to be involved in your needs. Even Mashiach has to come to take care of your needs. Enough already. No, Mashiach comes to show us how we can be completely free to serve Hashem without any distractions whatsoever. If He wants me to eat, I'll eat. He wants me to shake a lulav and esrog, shake a lulav and esrog. Wants me to light a Shabbos candle, it's fine with me, because I don't need anything. I'm just here for you. Good Yantif, Shana Tova, It's a new year, it's a new reality, it's a new world, it's a new beginning. Let's get free. Let's get free. Because the Alter Rebbe said, if you celebrate with me, I will free you. Not by a miracle, by changing your nature. Yantif.
אריכות ימים ושנים טובות, מתוך בריאות שלמה ואיתנה, שפע ושפע, לא מה אתה צריך, מה צריכים ממך. הקדוש ברוך הוא צריכים אתכם. We're going to continue, ladies. We have right now Yeshiva is coming, so Be'ezrat Hashem, the Almighty God will bless. I will do just one Kaddish. We're going to close the night. Anyone that want to stay to the whole night, we have, we have 80 Bachurei Yeshiva that they're on the way here. 80 Bachurei Yeshiva. So, Rabbi Chanan Bekasha Omer,